Have you ever felt invisible, like your voice was drowned out in a sea of noise? It's a familiar struggle, isn't it? We scroll through social media, craving validation, desperate for likes and comments, but what if I told you that true worth doesn't come from the outside? Imagine standing firm in your value, rooted in self-respect, regardless of others' opinions. Picture this. You walk into a room not seeking approval but radiating confidence. What would that feel like? The power of self-worth can transform your life. The Stoics taught us that our value is inherent, not dependent on external factors. Think about it. How often do you find yourself seeking attention, trying to fit into someone else's narrative? What if, instead, you focused on crafting your own story? It's time to break the cycle of seeking validation and embrace the strength that comes from within. Let's dive deep into the art of self-valuation. We'll uncover the key principles that can help you recognize your worth without needing to beg for attention. Are you ready to change the way you see yourself? Buckle up, because this journey starts now. If you're looking for more emotional balance, clarity in decision-making, and want to learn how to handle life better, this content is for you. So go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because with each video you'll grow stronger on the inside and see life with greater wisdom. Self-knowledge. Self-knowledge has always been one of those concepts that sounds simple but is actually deeply complex. It's like peeling an onion. The more layers you uncover, the more you realize there's still more to dig into. For me, it started with an introspective journey where I honestly assessed my skills and values. What was I really good at? What did I care about? It took time, but eventually I learned that understanding myself was not just about listing strengths and weaknesses. It's about grasping the nuances of who I am and what drives me. The importance of self-knowledge can't be overstated. It's the foundation for making informed decisions, whether it's in my career, relationships, or personal goals. When I know what I stand for, I can align my actions with my values. This alignment brings a sense of fulfillment that's hard to describe. I remember a time where I had to choose between a job that paid well but didn't resonate with my values and one that was more aligned but offered less financial security. Understanding my priorities made it easier to choose the latter. Self-awareness also plays a crucial role in personal growth. It allows me to recognize patterns in my behavior that may be holding me back. For instance, I realized that my tendency to avoid conflict stemmed from a deep-seated fear of rejection. Once I acknowledged this, I could work on it. Instead of running away from disagreements, I started engaging in healthy discussions, which not only improved my relationships but also boosted my confidence. Moreover, self-knowledge enhances emotional intelligence. When I'm aware of my feelings, I can manage them better. For example, if I notice I'm feeling anxious about a social event, I can take steps to prepare myself rather than just showing up unprepared. This understanding has transformed my interactions, allowing me to be more present and engaged with others. It's like flipping a switch. Suddenly, I'm not just going through the motions. I'm truly participating. Lastly, self-knowledge fosters resilience. Life is unpredictable, and when challenges arise, knowing who I am helps me navigate through the storm. I can tap into my core values and skills as a source of strength. I've learned that it's okay to stumble. What matters is how I get back up. With a solid understanding of myself, I can face adversity with a sense of purpose and direction. Self-esteem. Building and maintaining a healthy self-esteem has been one of the most transformative journeys of my life. It's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of external validation, especially in a world that constantly bombards us with images of success. I used to base my self-worth on likes and comments, but I soon realized that this was a fleeting source of validation. True self-esteem comes from within, and it's a continuous effort to nurture that inner value. One of the first steps I took was to challenge my negative self-talk. I started to notice how often I would dismiss my achievements or downplay my abilities. Instead of celebrating wins, I would think, anyone could have done that. Over time, I learned to counter these thoughts with affirmations and reminders of my capabilities. It may sound cheesy, but saying things like, "I am enough," helped shift my mindset. It's a small but powerful practice that can change the way I see myself. Another crucial aspect of building self-esteem is setting realistic goals. Achieving small, attainable objectives has a snowball effect on my confidence. I remember setting a goal to run a 5K. At first, it seemed daunting, but breaking it down into manageable steps made it achievable. Each time I completed a training run, my confidence grew. That sense of accomplishment extended beyond running. It seeped into other areas of my life, making me more willing to take on challenges. Maintaining self-esteem is an ongoing process, and it requires self-compassion. I've learned to be kinder to myself, especially during tough times. Instead of berating myself for making mistakes, I remind myself that everyone stumbles. This shift in perspective has been liberating. It allows me to embrace vulnerability and recognize that it's part of the human experience. Lastly, surrounding myself with positive influences has been vital. I've made a conscious effort to build relationships with people who uplift and support me. These connections serve as a reminder of my worth, reinforcing the idea that I am deserving of love and respect. It's a beautiful cycle. The more I value myself, the more I attract people who value me in return. Personal boundaries. Learning to establish personal boundaries has been a game changer for me. Early on, I often found myself saying yes to things out of obligation rather than genuine desire. This led to feelings of resentment and burnout. Understanding the importance of boundaries was a pivotal moment in my life. Setting limits isn't about being selfish. It's about honoring my needs and recognizing that I have the right to protect my energy. One of the first steps I took was clearly identifying my limits. I took time to reflect on situations where I felt uncomfortable or overwhelmed. It became evident that I needed to communicate my boundaries more effectively. I started with small steps, like saying no to social events I didn't want to attend. The initial discomfort faded as I realized that it was okay to prioritize my well-being. Establishing boundaries also means being aware of the dynamics in my relationships. There are times when I've had to distance myself from toxic individuals who drain my energy. It's tough, especially when these relationships have been long-standing, but I learned that it's essential for my mental health. Creating space for positivity has opened up room for more fulfilling connections in my life. Moreover, I've come to understand that boundaries are not set in stone. They can evolve. As I grow and change, so do my needs. I remember a time when I was more open to helping others, but as life became busier, I had to reassess my availability. Communicating these changes can be challenging, but it's crucial for maintaining healthy relationships. Finally, practicing assertiveness has been key in upholding my boundaries. Instead of feeling guilty for saying no, I've learned to express my needs confidently. This has not only strengthened my self-esteem but also encouraged others to respect my limits. It's a continuous journey, but each step I take toward establishing and maintaining boundaries is a step toward a healthier, more balanced life. Personal recognition. Recognizing and celebrating my own achievements has been an enlightening process. For the longest time, I would downplay my successes, thinking they weren't significant enough to warrant celebration. Whether it was finishing a project at work or simply getting through a tough week, I often brushed these moments aside. It took time to realize that acknowledging my accomplishments is vital for personal growth and self-worth. I began by keeping a journal where I documented my daily wins, no matter how small. This practice opened my eyes to the many victories I'd been overlooking. It's amazing how a simple act of writing can shift your perspective. I can now look back and see a collection of moments that represent my progress. Reflecting on these achievements reinforces my belief in my capabilities and motivates me to keep pushing forward. Moreover, celebrating my accomplishments doesn't have to be grand gestures. It can be as simple as treating myself to a favorite meal or taking a moment to enjoy a hobby. These small celebrations serve as reminders that I'm worthy of recognition, and they help cultivate a positive mindset. I've learned that taking the time to appreciate my efforts fosters a sense of gratitude that spills over into other aspects of my life. Sharing my achievements with trusted friends and family has also been a part of this journey. Initially, I felt awkward discussing my successes, fearing it would come off as bragging. However, I found that the people who care about me genuinely want to celebrate my wins. Their encouragement reinforces my self-worth and strengthens our bond. It's a beautiful cycle of support that fosters a positive environment. Lastly, I've realized that recognition isn't just about personal achievements. It's also about acknowledging my growth and the lessons learned from challenges. Each setback has contributed to who I am today. By celebrating not only the good but also the journey, I cultivate a holistic view of success. This practice of recognition has become a cornerstone of my self-development, reminding me that I am a work in progress, and that's perfectly okay. Valuing relationships. Focusing on genuine connections over superficial validation has been a pivotal shift in my life. In a world where it's so easy to get caught up in social media metrics, I found myself questioning the quality of my relationships. Initially, I thought the more friends I had, the better. However, it didn't take long to realize that quantity doesn't equate to quality. It's the depth of connections that truly matters. I started to prioritize relationships that brought joy and support into my life. This meant investing time and energy in people who uplift me rather than those who drain my spirit. I remember a friend who always seemed to compete rather than celebrate my successes. Once I recognized this dynamic, I decided to distance myself. It felt liberating to let go of relationships that didn't serve my well-being. Moreover, I've learned the importance of vulnerability in building meaningful connections. Opening up about my struggles and fears has allowed others to do the same, creating a safe space for honesty. I've had deep conversations that have strengthened my bonds with friends and family members. It's in these moments of vulnerability that true understanding and empathy flourish. I also make a conscious effort to express appreciation for the people in my life. A simple thank you or a heartfelt compliment goes a long way in nurturing relationships. These small gestures reinforce the idea that I value the people around me, which in turn encourages them to reciprocate. It's a beautiful dance of connection that enriches my life. Lastly, the importance of authenticity. Being authentic is something I've really come to value in my life. It's that feeling of being true to myself, not just for the sake of others but for my own peace of mind. When I think about authenticity, I realize how easy it is to fall into the trap of pleasing others or conforming to societal expectations. There's this nagging pressure to fit in, to be what everyone else wants us to be. But once I started to embrace my true self, everything changed. I felt lighter, more at ease, and surprisingly, I began to attract healthier relationships. Authenticity doesn't just mean being honest about your feelings, it also means being upfront about your values and beliefs. I've found that when I express my true self, the right people gravitate towards me. It's like a magnet for genuine connections. I remember a time when I was trying too hard to impress a new group of friends. I laughed at jokes I didn't find funny and agreed with opinions I didn't share. It was exhausting. The moment I decided to speak my truth, even if it meant risking disapproval, I felt an immense weight lift off my shoulders. The friendships that flourished after that were built on a foundation of honesty, and they felt so much more rewarding. Being authentic also plays a crucial role in mental health. I used to worry constantly about what others thought of me, which led to anxiety and self-doubt. But when I embraced who I really am, that inner critic began to quiet down. I realized that I couldn't control how others perceived me, and that was liberating. This newfound freedom allowed me to focus on what truly matters in life: my passions, my interests, and the people who appreciate me for me. It's a journey, and it doesn't happen overnight, but every little step toward authenticity counts. Embracing authenticity also means accepting imperfections. I've learned that nobody is perfect, and that's what makes us human. I used to hide my flaws, thinking they made me less worthy. But as I started to accept my quirks and shortcomings, I found a deeper connection to others who were also struggling with their own issues. It's refreshing to be in a space where vulnerability is welcomed. Sharing my challenges has not only strengthened my relationships but also fostered a sense of community. We're all navigating this messy, beautiful life together, and that's something to celebrate. Lastly, living authentically allows me to make choices that align with my true self. When I'm clear about who I am, decision-making becomes easier. I've learned to trust my instincts more and to say no to things that don't resonate with me. This clarity has led me to opportunities that feel right, whether it's in my career, friendships, or hobbies. Authenticity isn't just a concept, it's a lifestyle, and it's one that I'm proud to embrace. The influence of social media. Social media, the double-edged sword of our time. On one hand, it connects us with friends and family, but on the other, it can distort our self-image in ways we often overlook. I've spent countless hours scrolling through perfectly curated feeds, feeling like I was missing out on something. It's easy to forget that what we see online is often a highlight reel, not the full picture. I had to remind myself that behind every glamorous photo, there's a person who has their own struggles just like me. At first, I thought I could control my feelings about social media. I told myself that I was just being inspired by others. But soon, I realized that the constant comparison was chipping away at my self-esteem. I was measuring my worth against the lives of others, and that's a slippery slope. I started to notice how my mood would dip after spending time online, especially if I encountered posts that made me feel inadequate. It was a wake-up call, and I knew I had to set some boundaries. One of the best decisions I made was to curate my feed. I started following accounts that uplifted me and focused on authenticity rather than perfection. I sought out people who shared their real stories, the messiness of life, the failures, and the triumphs. It was refreshing and reminded me that everyone has their battles. It helped me reframe my perspective on social media. Instead of viewing it as a source of validation, I began to see it as a tool for connection and inspiration, grounded in reality. Additionally, I began to practice digital detoxes. Setting aside specific times to unplug from social media has been incredibly beneficial for my mental health. It allows me to reconnect with myself and my surroundings without the distractions of likes and comments. I've learned to appreciate the present moment more, whether it's enjoying a cup of coffee or going for a walk. These breaks help me recharge and return to social media with a clearer mindset, less influenced by the pressures of comparison. Ultimately, the key takeaway for me has been finding balance. Social media isn't going away, it's a part of our lives now. But I've learned how to navigate it in a way that enhances my life rather than detracts from it. I focus on engaging with content that aligns with my values and reminds me of my worth. It's all about creating an online space that reflects the authenticity I strive for in my everyday life. Developing skills. Investing in myself through skill development has been one of the most empowering journeys I've embarked on. It's incredible what a little dedication can do for your confidence and sense of purpose. I used to think that once I finished my formal education, my learning days were over. However, life has a funny way of showing us that growth is a continuous process. I've come to appreciate the value of lifelong learning, whether it's picking up a new hobby or advancing my career. I started by identifying areas I was passionate about but had little experience in. For instance, I've always had an interest in photography but never really took it seriously. So, I enrolled in an online course. The first few attempts were clumsy to say the least, but with each click of the shutter, I felt a growing sense of accomplishment. It was refreshing to step out of my comfort zone and dedicate time to something I loved. The more I practiced, the more my skills improved, and I began to see the world from a different perspective. Another significant aspect of skill development is the impact on my professional life. In today's fast-paced world, staying relevant is crucial. I found that investing in courses and workshops not only enhanced my skill set but also opened up new opportunities. I remember attending a networking event after completing a digital marketing course. The confidence I gained from my new skills allowed me to engage in conversations that I would have previously shied away from. Networking became less daunting and more about sharing knowledge and experiences. Moreover, I've learned that skill development doesn't always have to be formal. Some of my most valuable lessons have come from simply diving into projects or collaborating with others. I joined a community of creators where we share our crafts and provide constructive feedback. This collaborative learning environment has been incredibly enriching. I've gained insights that I wouldn't have discovered on my own, and it has fostered a sense of camaraderie that motivates me to keep pushing my boundaries. In the end, the journey of developing skills is not just about acquiring knowledge. It's about building self-esteem and resilience. Each new skill learned is a testament to my ability to adapt and grow. It reminds me that I am capable of tackling challenges head-on. The more I invest in myself, the more I realize that my potential is limitless. The practice of gratitude. Gratitude has been a game-changer for me. It's a simple concept, but when practiced regularly, it can profoundly shift your mindset. I remember a time when I would get caught up in the stress of daily life, often focusing on what was lacking rather than what I had. It was easy to overlook the small joys that surrounded me. But once I started consciously practicing gratitude, I began to see the world through a different lens. Every morning, I set aside a few minutes to reflect on what I'm grateful for. It could be as simple as a warm cup of coffee or a kind word from a friend. This daily ritual has helped me cultivate a more positive outlook on life. I've noticed that when I focus on the good, even the mundane aspects of life become special. It's like flipping a switch. I start to appreciate the little things that I once took for granted. Another aspect of gratitude is its role in fostering resilience. Life can throw us curveballs and it's easy to get bogged down by negativity. However, by regularly acknowledging what I'm thankful for, I've built a mental buffer against life's challenges. When I face setbacks, I remind myself of the strengths and support systems I have in place. This perspective shift has made me more adaptable and better equipped to handle adversity. Practicing gratitude has also improved my relationships. When I take the time to express appreciation for the people in my life, it deepens our connections. A simple thank you or acknowledging someone's efforts can go a long way. I've made it a point to reach out to loved ones and let them know how much they mean to me. This practice not only brightens their day but also reinforces the bonds we share. It's a win-win situation that fosters a sense of community and belonging. Ultimately, the practice of gratitude is about cultivating a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. It's easy to get caught up in the "I need more" mentality, but gratitude reminds me that I already have so much to be thankful for. This shift in perspective has brought me peace and contentment. Life may not always be perfect, but there's always something to appreciate, and that's a powerful realization. Empathy and reciprocity. When I think about the essence of meaningful relationships, the words empathy and reciprocity come to mind. It's fascinating how we often overlook the emotional exchanges that happen in our connections with others. Empathy for me is not just about understanding someone else's feelings, it's about immersing yourself in their experiences. When a friend shares their struggles, I try to put myself in their shoes, feeling their pain, joy, or frustration. This emotional resonance can deepen our bond, creating a safe space where we can both share and receive support. Reciprocity, on the other hand, is the unspoken agreement that exists in healthy relationships. It's that give-and-take dynamic where both parties feel valued. I've noticed that when I open up and provide support, my friends tend to respond in kind. It's not about keeping score but rather nurturing an environment where emotional support flows naturally. If I lend a listening ear when they're upset, they're more likely to do the same for me when I need it. This balance makes our relationships feel more equitable and fulfilling. However, it's essential to recognize that empathy and reciprocity aren't always easy to achieve. There are moments when I might feel drained, and reaching out to others feels like a Herculean task. It's in those times that I remind myself that vulnerability can be a strength. By allowing myself to be open about my feelings, I invite others to do the same. This transparency fosters deeper connections and reinforces the idea that we're all in this together, navigating the ups and downs of life. One thing I've learned is the importance of active listening and fostering empathy. It's not just about hearing the words, it's about engaging with the other person on a deeper level. When a friend talks about their day, I try to ask questions that show I'm genuinely interested. This engagement not only helps me understand their perspective but also encourages them to share more. Over time, I've realized that this practice strengthens our bond and allows for a deeper understanding of each other's emotional landscapes. As I navigate my relationships, I've come to appreciate the beauty of mutual support. Whether it's celebrating milestones together or providing comfort during tough times, the emotional exchanges we share create a tapestry of connection. It's a reminder that we're not alone in our experiences. The more I practice empathy and embrace reciprocity, the richer my relationships become, leaving me feeling understood and appreciated. Assertive communication. When I think about communication, I realize how vital it is to express my needs and feelings clearly. Assertive communication is all about being honest while respecting both myself and others. It's taken me some time to master this art, but I've found that when I articulate my thoughts and emotions without aggression, the outcomes are often more positive. Instead of bottling up my feelings or resorting to passive-aggressive remarks, I've learned that a straightforward approach can lead to healthier interactions. One of the key aspects of assertive communication is using I statements. For instance, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," I try to say, "I feel unheard when I'm interrupted." This subtle shift in language focuses on my feelings rather than assigning blame, which tends to reduce defensiveness in the other person. I've found that when I communicate my feelings in this way, it opens the door for dialogue rather than confrontation. Moreover, assertiveness doesn't mean being rigid or inflexible. I've learned that it's essential to be open to feedback and willing to adjust my perspective. Sometimes, when I express my needs, I find that others have valid points or concerns. This is where active listening plays a crucial role. By acknowledging the other person's viewpoint, I create a collaborative atmosphere where we can work toward a solution together. It's about finding common ground rather than merely pushing my agenda. One challenge I've faced in assertive communication is overcoming the fear of rejection or conflict. There have been times when I hesitated to voice my needs, worrying about how the other person would react. However, I've come to realize that being true to myself is ultimately more important than avoiding discomfort. When I muster the courage to speak up, I often discover that the other person appreciates my honesty and is willing to engage in a constructive conversation. Practicing assertive communication has transformed my relationships. I've noticed that when I express myself clearly, others are more likely to reciprocate. This transparency fosters trust and intimacy, creating an environment where everyone feels safe to share their thoughts and emotions. It's a continuous journey, but each step I take toward assertiveness strengthens my connections with others, making my interactions more authentic and fulfilling. Handling criticism. Criticism can sting, can't it? I've always had a complicated relationship with feedback, especially when it feels personal. Learning to handle criticism constructively has been a journey for me, but it's one that has significantly improved my emotional resilience. I used to take every critique to heart, letting it define my self-worth. However, I've come to realize that feedback, when delivered thoughtfully, can be a valuable tool for growth. One of the first steps I took in handling criticism was to separate my identity from the feedback I received. Instead of thinking, I am a failure because of this mistake, I started reframing it as, I made a mistake but that doesn't define who I am. This mindset shift has helped me approach criticism with curiosity rather than defensiveness. When I receive constructive feedback, I ask myself what I can learn from it and how I can apply it to improve. Another critical aspect of handling criticism is recognizing the difference between constructive feedback and destructive criticism. I've learned to evaluate the intent behind the words. Constructive criticism typically comes from a place of care and desire to help, while destructive criticism often stems from negativity or personal issues. When I can discern the difference, I find it easier to brush off the latter and focus on the former. It's also important to practice self-compassion when facing criticism. I remind myself that everyone makes mistakes and that growth is a process. Instead of being overly harsh on myself, I try to treat myself with the same kindness I would offer a friend in a similar situation. This self-compassion allows me to approach feedback with a more open mind, facilitating personal development instead of spiraling into self-doubt. Finally, I've discovered that seeking clarification can be incredibly helpful. If I receive feedback that feels vague or overly critical, I don't hesitate to ask questions. This not only helps me understand the criticism better but also shows that I'm genuinely interested in improving. Engaging in a dialogue about the feedback often leads to valuable insights and strengthens my ability to handle criticism effectively. Avoiding comparisons. In a world dominated by social media and constant connectivity, the temptation to compare myself to others is ever present. I can't count the number of times I've scrolled through my feed and felt a twinge of inadequacy. It's all too easy to look at someone else's highlight reel and feel like I'm falling short. However, I've learned that comparisons can be detrimental to my self-esteem and overall well-being. One of the first steps I took to combat this habit was to limit my time on social media. I realized that the more I engaged with these platforms, the more I fell into the comparison trap. By setting boundaries around my social media use, I've found that I can focus on my own journey rather than getting lost in the curated lives of others. It's empowering to take control of my time and mental space, allowing me to cultivate a more positive self-image. I've also learned the importance of practicing gratitude. When I catch myself comparing my life to someone else's, I take a moment to reflect on my own accomplishments and blessings. This practice has shifted my perspective from scarcity to abundance. Instead of feeling envious of what others have, I remind myself of the unique qualities and experiences that make my journey special. Gratitude has become a powerful antidote to the negative effects of comparison. Another helpful strategy has been to focus on personal growth rather than external validation. I've come to appreciate the value of setting my own goals and measuring my progress against them. Instead of comparing myself to others, I celebrate my milestones and acknowledge the effort I've put in. This shift in focus has allowed me to cultivate a sense of self-worth that isn't contingent on how I stack up against others. Moreover, I've found that surrounding myself with supportive individuals makes a significant difference. When I'm with people who uplift and encourage me, I'm less likely to engage in harmful comparisons. I've learned to value relationships that are rooted in mutual support and celebration rather than competition. This sense of community reinforces the notion that we all have our unique paths and that it's okay to embrace my individuality. Ultimately, avoiding comparisons has been about honoring my journey and recognizing that everyone is on their own timeline. Each of us has different strengths, challenges, and experiences that shape who we are. By cultivating self-compassion and gratitude, I can appreciate my life without the need to measure it against others. It's a liberating journey that allows me to focus on what truly matters: my growth and happiness. Emotional self-care. In the hustle and bustle of life, it's easy to overlook the importance of emotional self-care. I used to prioritize everything: work, relationships, and responsibilities, often neglecting my own emotional well-being. However, I've come to realize that taking care of my emotional health is just as crucial as any other aspect of my life. It's about nurturing my mental and emotional state so that I can show up as my best self for others. One practice that has made a significant difference for me is mindfulness. I've started incorporating mindfulness techniques into my daily routine, whether it's through meditation, deep breathing exercises, or simply taking a few moments to pause and reflect. This practice allows me to connect with my emotions and gain clarity on my thoughts. So, as we wrap up this journey of self-value and the importance of not begging for attention, I want you to take a moment and reflect. How often do we find ourselves seeking validation from others? Think about it. Every time you scroll through social media, are you measuring your worth against likes and comments? That's a trap, my friends. Remember, true value comes from within. The Stoics teach us that our perception shapes our reality. So, how can we shift that perception? By embracing our unique qualities and recognizing that our worth is inherent, not determined by external approval. Now, I challenge you, the next time you feel that urge to seek attention, pause. Ask yourself, what do I truly value about myself? Dive deep into that question. It's a powerful tool for self-discovery and growth. And don't forget, the journey doesn't stop here. What are some practical steps you can take today to reinforce your self-worth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm eager to hear your experiences. Let's keep this conversation going together. Remember, you are enough. Stay strong, stay wise, and keep embracing the stoic path. See you in the next video.